Hello, I am Aamina Hennings. Thank you for joining me for this particular podcast that I am entitling Toddler Tantrums, Teenage Tear Up. So let's think about this. So last week I was talking about the beginning of like the newborn and the cries, what they mean. This week we're going to talk about toddlers and their tantrums. My husband and I, we have a 3-year-old. Oh my goodness. You would think that the world has ended because he didn't get what he wanted. Have you ever met a teenager that felt that way? Have you ever met, how about even an adult that felt that way? That they were like, you know what? I don't really know how to feel. I don't know what to do. How do I react? Because now I'm upset about something. Let's dive into this during this particular discussion. So I was thinking about when a toddler has a tantrum, it is definitely the result of they didn't get what they wanted, or they were told to do something they didn't want to do. Does that sound like teenagers to you? Because it sure sounds like teenagers to me. When toddlers are pushed to the point of, okay, I don't like the way this is ending. I don't like how I'm feeling right now. They can fall out on the floor. They are screaming. They can kick. And I almost look at our 3-year-old and I'm like, who are you? Parents of teenagers, have you ever thought about that when you looked at your teenager? Who are you? Who is this person? And why are you changing so much right before my very eyes? So when we think about toddlers, especially from a mother's perspective, I want to correct it. And at the same time, I want a lesson learned. So think about that. There is that process of correcting. There is the process of teaching a lesson. It has to be done in a way that's effective. Yes, I have heard people say if your toddler is having a tantrum, you let them go and do what they're going to do as long as they don't hurt themselves. I have heard also you grab them and you hold them tight so that you can try to get them to calm down. There are so many options out there. But the crazy part is each instance is going to be different. Each child is going to be different. So are you. You are different from when you had a toddler as a parent and then now a teenager. So really think about the differences and wait a minute, I may not be able to do the same thing with baby A that I did with baby B. Teenager A or teenager B. It's really about adapting to that particular child and his or her needs. Toddlers are still learning. Wait a minute. Teenagers are still learning. They're still trying to figure this thing out. Toddlers still fall sometimes when they're walking. Wait a minute. Teenagers, they still fall as they're still learning how to be 13, 14, 15, and beyond. There is a huge, when I tell you huge similarity between a toddler and a teenager. And some of those things don't change. They go through phases and they come right back around. They come back around to it. So what I'm trying to get you to understand, the responses that you gave your toddler may very well be some of the same responses you give to your teenager. This thing we call life, in reference to how toddlers grow, how they learn, how they're just taking all of this stuff in. Have you ever thought about how your toddler quickly can like really pick up stuff and you can maybe play a song or you can read a story to them and they're ready to almost repeat it right back to you? Do you realize that your teenager, this is the hard part for me, they're taking in that at that speed, in my eyes, all of this stuff that's in the world today. They're doing the same thing as they did as a toddler. The only thing is they're not always learning new information. They just may be exposed to different types of information, not necessarily learning, but the mere exposure. And so when we're thinking about raising teens, when we're thinking about helping teens, I want you to reflect back to the toddler stage. Again, we have tantrums. Teenagers may slam doors. Toddlers are falling out. Toddlers are screaming. I have even heard, I couldn't believe it, but I have heard teenagers screaming at their parents. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is not right. This is not right. But some of these behaviors have been allowed down through the years. So it was cute when the 2-year-old kind of hit at you. But if they're 16 and hit at you, that's not cute. That is not. And so we have to understand healthy boundaries. We have to understand that structure is needed. So this conversation that you and I are having today, you're listening to me. I'm sure you have all these thoughts going on through your mind, like, well, maybe I should have done this, or maybe I should try this. Just as you're raising your toddler and trying to get him or her through certain stages, getting them to try new foods that they don't like. Think about when they're a teenager and now you're trying to get them to do new things. Maybe venture out from some friends that are not very positive influences on their lives. Think about how you do that. What does that look like for your child? It is not going to be the same for every child. There may be some ups and downs, some bumps and bruises, but you have to keep going. Do not stop. As a parent, I am pleading with you, do not give up on your teenager. You didn't give up on your toddler. You didn't tell your toddler, okay, you are 2, you're 3, I'm done. You can go live with Aunt or Uncle so-and-so. We're good. We're done. Don't give up on your teenager. Your teenager needs you more now than ever. At least with toddlers, they're still entrusting their little hearts with you. Wait a minute. Teenagers are doing the same thing. They just may not show it. They may not express it, but they have entrusted their heart with you. As a parent, what are you doing with it? How are you handling it? It is so precious to see when parents and teenagers come together in unity, because that is one of the roughest stages of life that parents deal with. It's hard when you have a newborn that's crying at night and you're sleepy. By the way, I'm sleepy too, because our now 18-month-old, she's in her own world. I digress. But when you're tired, you figure out how to, keep going and keep moving, and you go to work, you come home, you fix dinner, you're doing all these things that life entails, and you make it work. You don't feel like, okay, I don't want to do this baby again. You're not giving up. So when you're fast forwarding to you parents that have teenagers that you may be struggling with some things, struggling with relationships, you can make it. Try, and I said this last week, listening is so very important. There are some teenagers out there that just wish that somebody would just listen to them. They may not want advice. They're not thinking about guidance. They're just like, can you just listen to my feelings? Parents, don't give up. I know that toddler may have tantrums. That teenager may turn some things out and you're like, I don't recognize this individual. But what I'm telling you today, and I want you to understand the importance of not giving up. Your teenager needs you. He or she may never say it until years down the line, but they need you in their life. They need consistency. They need guidance. They need structure. They need you. This is Aamina Hennings. Thank you for joining my podcast. I will see you next time.